Hello, my dear students. Let us continue our discussion. So, up till now, we have discussed the types of companies. In today's session, we are going to cover the procedure to incorporate a company. In my next session, I will discuss procedure to incorporate a Section 8 company. We will also go through a few practical insights. And after that, we will discuss memorandum and articles in detail. Now, as far as incorporation is concerned, you may be asked case based or theory questions. The sections which are important for exam have been highlighted for you. So, according to me, these are the most important sections from this chapter. I have only used, I have only covered the first few sections because the other relate to memorandum and articles, which I'm going to discuss when the time comes. As of now, we are only discussing the procedure to incorporate a company. So, what is the procedure? So, these are the sections which pertain to the procedure. Important ones are Section 2, Clause 69, which defines a promoter. So, you need to learn the definition of a promoter. Questions are asked. Questions, case based questions are asked on members are severally liable under certain circumstances. So section 3 capital A indicates that this was added through an amendment. So we need minimum number of members and that minimum number must be present throughout the lifetime of the company. If it falls below the minimum number of members, then the members who are aware of that shall be severally liable. Section 8 company, yes, we will be although we have covered this in the previous chapter, but we will be studying the procedure to incorporate a Section 8 company. And then most important, commencement of business can be asked as a theory question, Section 10 capital A. So according to me, these are the four most important sections. I have also written what you need to learn and what kind of questions can be asked. First, let us discuss the meaning of promoters. Before that, these are the few forms which I have highlighted. You need to memorize the number. Now, who is a promoter? Promoter is someone who promotes the company. He encourages people to invest in that company. Yes, to promote a product, it means to encourage people to buy it. So, to promote a company means you're telling people, come invest in my company. Now, promoter is someone who comes up with the idea of doing business, but it is not that simple. Huh? Today I thought of it and tomorrow I incorporated a company. It's not that simple. Like when I incorporated a company, I wanted someone to join me because I need two persons to incorporate a private company. So I was sitting in one of the classes and I was talking to my friend and I told him that many professors are encouraging me to start online lectures. What do you think? He said, yeah, even I'm thinking. I said, do you want to start this together? So I proposed and I promoted my idea of business. And he said, yes, let's do it together. So we incorporated a company. But before that, there was a lot of research that we did. The market, the competitors in the market, what is their strategy, at what price are they selling, what is there even a demand for these online lectures? So there was a lot of research that we did. Then we said, from where will we arrange money? And we decided that because a lot of equipment is not required, just a camera, lights, PC, so we could manage that from our own funds. So we purchased the equipment, we introduced some capital, and yes, we also incorporated the company by filing certain forms, memorandum, articles. So all that hard work goes in the incorporation of a company. It's not like today I thought of it and tomorrow I went and incorporated the company. So we researched, we contributed capital, we did a SWOT analysis, we did the market research, we arranged for capital. So there were many things involved in that. So broadly speaking, promoter is a person who arranges for the minimum number of members. He arranges capital. He decides the name of the company, or I should say they decide. It's not a single promoter. So we decided that since we both were teaching theory subjects, and we were masters of that subject. So we said the name of our company should be Theory Masters, but we were into learning. So Theory Masters Learning Private Limited. Now, ma'am, why add the word learning? Because the name of your company should reflect the objects of the company. So we kept the name of our company Theory Masters Learning Private Limited. So they arrange for the minimum number of members, they arrange capital, they decide the name of the company, they prepare the documents, the memorandum, the articles of association. We file different documents like memorandum, articles, all that was filed with ROC. So who are promoters? The promoters, they are the persons who initiate the promotion of the company. They steps. Now I have divided this into 3 paragraphs. I have already done my homework. I have prepared notes for you so that we save time, and whatever time we save, we use it to solve questions. So what is the work of the promoter? To prepare the prospectus, draft the memorandum of association, and assist, that is help in registration of the company. So people who do all this are known as promoters. Is it compulsory that promoters are involved only at the time of incorporation of the company? No. Anyone who later on arranges for capital of the company, helps promoting the business, that person may also be regarded as the promoter. Section 2, clause 69 defines a promoter. Promoter is the one who is named as such in the prospectus or who is identified by the company in the annual return. So let us highlight prospectus, let us highlight annual return. Please write down annual return section 92. So any person who is named as a promoter in the prospectus. So prospectus is a document through which we invite subscription from the public. So my name is mentioned as a promoter. I am a promoter. Annual return mentions my name as a promoter. I am a promoter. Any person who has control over the affairs of the company, whether as a shareholder, director, he's controlling directly or indirectly. I can control the company. I decide what decisions the company will take. I'm the promoter. And in accordance with whose advice, directions, instructions, the board is accustomed to act, means they are used to acting. In foundation, we had discussed a case law, Guilford Motor Company. Yes, do you remember that case law? So, what had happened in that case? Guilford Motor Company versus Horney. Yes. So, what had happened in that case? So, they had agreed that after leaving the company's service, he will not start a competing business. But when he was fired, he started undercutting. He started a business in proprietary and started undercutting Guilford Motor Company's prices. Then he realized that, oh, if I do that, Guilford Motor will file a case against me for breach of contract. So he incorporated a company. Okay, he incorporated a company with his wife and his friend, Mr. Howard, as the only members. Okay, and they continued the business of undercutting the prices. Now, in this case, we assumed that although the contract for not competing was entered between Guilford Motor Company and Horney, he was merely using this company as a shield to hide his illegitimate actions. Do you remember that case? Yes. So, Guilford Motor Company filed a case against the company. So, Horney said, Are, you have a contract with me, you don't have a contract with that company. We said, Nothing doing. The company has only two members, your wife and friend, Mr. Howard. You are in a position to influence the decisions of the company. In fact, the board of directors are accustomed to act as per your decisions. Lift the corporate veil, consider this as one and the same. So, in this case, the board was accustomed to act as per his instructions. He is also a promoter. So, in accordance with whose advice, see, in accordance with whose advice, instructions, directions, the board of directors is accustomed to act. Is it clear? Yes. So, we are accustomed to act as per his instructions. So, he is a promoter. Now, After reading the definition, you must have realized that they are not explaining the work of the promoter. They are merely identifying a promoter. He is a promoter who should be held responsible in case something goes wrong in the company. They are not defining or describing his work, what he does. We are only identifying the promoter, that he is a promoter. He is called a promoter. Now, this is very important for case-based question. If a case-based question is asked, you will write both these points. Any person who is acting merely in a professional capacity, like a banker, solicitor, accountant, they will not be considered as a promoter. Now, let's say, for example, that I wanted to incorporate a company, but I was not sure about the procedure. So I went to a solicitor or a company secretary. They helped me to incorporate a company. Now, this is their professional work. A solicitor gives legal advice, accountant also, he gives advice. It is their professional, they are helping me in their professional capacity. They are not promoters, even though they are involved in the initial promotion stage. But what if they go beyond their professional capacity? Like, the banker is not only helping me to incorporate, but he is also going one step ahead and bringing investors who are ready to invest capital in the company. If he is exceeding, if he is going beyond his professional capacity, then he may be regarded as a promoter. So here he is not a promoter if he is acting in his professional capacity, merely advisory capacity. But if he goes beyond his professional capacity, he may be regarded as a promoter. Hence, a promoter need not necessarily be someone who is involved in the initial formation of the company. Anyone who subsequently helps in acquiring capital can be regarded as a promoter. So, both these bullet points should be included in your answer. Next, let us discuss formation of a company. So, who is involved in the formation of the company? If I want to form a company, let's say I want to incorporate a private company. So I need minimum 2 persons, public company 7, OPC I need just 1 person. And this must be formed for a legal, for a lawful purpose. Now this minimum number must be maintained throughout the lifetime of the company. At no point of time the number can be below this. These are the people who sign the memorandum and they agree to purchase the number of shares mentioned against their name. Why are they purchasing shares? Because that is the initial capital which they bring into the business, because you cannot do business without capital. So this is the minimum number which should be maintained throughout the lifetime. These are the persons who are known as subscribers. Subscribers means they sign the memorandum and agree to purchase the number of shares mentioned against their name in the memorandum. The business must be for a lawful purpose. Yes, okay. That will not be asked in the exam, but you need to know section 3. What will be asked is section 3A. So, if suppose there were 7 members in a public company, they had an argument, 3 members left. Okay, 3 members left. Only 4 members remain. Now, we will give you 6 months' time. In 6 months, you bring this number to 7. Allot shares to people. Okay, you bring members. You increase this to 7. If you don't, then the members who were aware that the company is operating with a reduced number, they shall be held personally liable for whole of the debts of the company contracted after those 6 months. So let's say that 4 members remain. the company is doing business, we will allow you to do business with this reduced number for 6 months. After 6 months, if you continue to operate with this lower number, all the existing members who are aware that the number has reduced, they shall be now severally liable for all the debts contracted after 6 months. If at any time the number is reduced, in case of public company below 7, in case of private company below 2, they have not mentioned OPC, because in OPC the number will never reduce below 1. If the member dies, the nominee will become the member and nominate some other person. So that number will never go below 1. Okay. So here the provisions relate to public company and private company. If at any time the number of members is reduced below 7 in case of public and 2 in case of private, and the company continues to carry on business for more than 6 months with this reduced number, every person who is, you will highlight a member who carries on the business after 6 months and is cognizant of the fact. Write on the meaning of the word cognizant. Cognizant means who is aware of the fact that the company is doing business with this reduced number, they shall be severally liable for all the debts, whole of the debts which is contracted at that time, means after 6 months. Next, let us discuss the mode of registration of the company. Will a question be asked on this? I don't think so, but you need to know. So the company must carry on business for lawful purpose with a particular number of persons. This particular number is mentioned in section 3. Section 3 says that you need minimum 7 in a public company, 2 in a private company, and 1 in OPC. When the object is not lawful, suppose you are registered with a company, normally the ROCs are very vigilant, they take care, but by mistake, if they register a company with the objects of drug dealing and later they found out, oh, we registered a company with objects like drug dealing, the company, see, initially if they find out, they will refuse to register. But if he by mistake registers the company, okay, so when the object is unlawful, he will refuse. But if by mistake he registers the company, certificate of incorporation is not conclusive for this purpose. Registration may be cancelled by the central government. Ma'am, what is the meaning of certificate of incorporation is not conclusive for this purpose? Certificate of incorporation, students, later on we are going to discuss, is just a conclusive evidence that all the administrative requirements have been complied with. It is not a proof that whatever is written in the memorandum articles and the incorporation document is true and accurate. It only says that all the administrative requirements like paperwork, submission of documents, proper filing, all that administrative work is done. Okay, now you want to incorporate a company. Incorporation is just like birth of the company. So whenever a child is born, what is the first thing that you do? We decide the name of the company. We decide the name of that, child. Similarly, you will first apply for the name. Now, name application will be given in SPICE plus Part A. Now, what is the meaning of SPICE? Simplified Proforma for incorporating a company electronically. Ma'am, we need to write this. It is given over here. Simplified Proforma for incorporating a company electronically. Now, SPICE plus. Why SPICE plus? It was earlier only SPICE. Now, why SPICE plus? Because in this one form itself, you can, by filling part A, apply for name of the company. This is new name, okay? And by filling part B, you can comply with the provisions for incorporation of company. So in just one form, by filling those two parts, you can incorporate a company. Opening of bank account, application for TAN, PAN, everything is done through this one form. It's a very simplified proforma for incorporating a company electronically. No paperwork is required and now everything is done electronically. You don't have to physically go and send something to ROC. I also incorporate a company electronically. I don't even know how and where my ROC is and who is my ROC. I'm not aware. I never went and visited that place physically. Everything was online. I got the certificate of incorporation also online only. So Spice Plus Part A under new application. Ma'am, what if an existing company wants to change the name? Then the application is run. That is reserve unique name. So this is a web-based application. This is the application for change of name. Triangle means change. Change of name of an existing company. Okay. New company Spice Plus Part A. So this is new company name application. Existing company wants to change the name. Existing company will make changes through run. The company will attach a document containing the objects. Ma'am, why objects? We are applying for name. Name must contain the object of the company. So we need to attach a document which contains the main object. So you have to follow the name availability guidelines also. Name availability guidelines we are going to discuss later in memorandum and articles, that the name should not resemble the name of an existing company. It should not be against the sovereignty or integrity of India. So there are many such requirements. Within 20 days, you need to incorporate a company. So as soon as you get the new name, within 20 days, you must fill Part B and incorporate the company. For an existing company, the new name should be adopted within 60 days from approval. Please highlight over here. This is important for MCQ. So in case of a new company, once you get the name, please adopt and fill the incorporation form within 20 days. In case of an existing company, fill the form within 60 days. After you get the name, please quickly, you have only 20 days, quickly draft the memorandum and articles. Ma'am, is it done physically? No, everything is electronic. See, incorporation of the company is through form INC 32. Memorandum is INC 33 and e-articles is INC 34. All the documents are e-filed and e-stamped. Everything is filled through Spice Plus Part B now. Now, my memorandum and articles are ready. What are the other documents that are required? Now, students, please note that these are things which you need to learn. There's nothing to explain in this. Yes, I have simplified the points and given it to you in the point format only. You need to learn these provisions. Okay. Now, along with this, we also need a declaration in form INC 8 by persons engaged in the formation of the company, who can be either an advocate, chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary. In practice, they are engaged in the formation of the company. And I also need a declaration from insider. That is a person who is named in the articles, like a director, manager, company secretary. Now, what declaration are they making? They are declaring that all the requirements of the act have been complied with. See, ROC is not physically verifying any document that you file. ROC does not know that the person who is actually signing the document is the one who is named. Like, I am writing name as Mr. Prem Kumar and signing it, putting one photo. How will the ROC come to know whether this person is actually the one who wants to incorporate? What if I had his Aadhaar card or I had a copy of his PAN card? I wrote his name, I affixed his photo, I created a sign or I forged the sign, and I incorporated a company. I filed the documents also. ROC has no idea. Mr. Prem Kumar may one fine day come and tell, Arey, my documents were with my advocate and he incorporated a company in my name. I was not even aware of it. So ROC has no means of verifying because everything is done electronically. So what will he do? He will ask these people to sign a declaration that according to them, every step has been properly complied with. This declaration will be in form INC 8. One will be by the persons who are engaged in the formation, they are outsiders, and one is the person named in the articles, they are like an insider. You also need to give address for correspondence till the registered office is established. Now, when will the registered office be established? Now, it is our Indian mentality. Arey, let the company be incorporated first, then we will rent out a registered office. Why do you want to spend right now? Also, the agreement will be in the name of the company. So, only when the company is incorporated, we get the certificate of incorporation. Only then we can enter into contracts for renting or buying an office, registered office. So, law says, all right, we know that at the time of incorporation, you may not have a registered office. So, you give us an address where we can send the communication, but within 30 days of incorporation, you must have your registered office and you inform us by filing INC 22. Section 12, we are going to study that later, requires the company to send a notice to the ROC of the address, informing the address within 30 days of incorporation in Form INC 22. So in INC 22, I will inform him that, listen, now this is my registered office. Please send all the communications to this place, to this address. I need to give personal details and proof of identity of the subscribers, then director identification number along with their consent to act as director, declaration in Form INC 9 from the subscribers and the person's name that all the documents which have been filed are correct and accurate. We need them to also verify that they have not been convicted or found guilty of any offense with regard to promotion management of any other company. He has not been found guilty of fraud or misfeasance, means in wrongful action. The company will, this is important. So this was something which you need to just learn. Company shall maintain and preserve where? At its registered office. What will it preserve? All the documents and information originally filed with ROC. Till when? Till the dissolution. So see how I can memorize this by asking 3 questions. Where will the company preserve these documents? Registered office. What will it preserve? All the documents and information that it had filed with ROC. And till when? Till the dissolution. Winding up. This is some extra reading which I have given in the textbook, but I don't think it is important. For example, it was there in the study material, so I simplified that, but I don't think it will be asked in the exam. Once the ROC is satisfied that all the requirements have been complied with, they will issue a certificate of incorporation in INC 11. This certificate will be a distinct identity. Distinct means it's a separate identity. It's a unique identity for every company. This certificate of incorporation contains my corporate identification number. This is a 21-digit alphanumeric number, and it will be included in the certificate. The certificate also includes my PAN number, TAN number, that is tax deduction number. So all that will be included in my incorporation certificate. This is like a birth certificate of the company. The company comes into existence from the date which is mentioned in the certificate of incorporation. What if later on I find out that you have incorporated the company by furnishing false or incorrect information? So if later on we find that you have either given false facts or you have suppressed, hidden some facts from us. So what if there is furnishing of false or incorrect information or suppression of material fact? Now, furnishing means giving. You are giving some false or incorrect particulars at the time of incorporation. It means at the time of incorporation, ROC caught you. Okay, he realized that something is wrong. You are giving or you are suppressing. Suppressing means hiding. You are either giving or hiding what? You are giving false information, incorrect particulars, or you are hiding some material. Material means important information. And you are aware of what you are doing. Okay, so you are either hiding some information or you are giving some false information knowingly. Then any person who does that, okay, the word is any, he will be liable for fraud under section 447. Here we have used the word any. So any person who does this will be liable. See, the company is not yet incorporated. So we don't have the directors, promoters. These people come into existence only when the company is incorporated. Yes. 447 I will be discussing in some time. What if ROC at the time of incorporation did not realize, but later on he found that the company was incorporated by furnishing false or incorrect information. So highlight the word furnishing. You are incorporated by furnishing or giving false or incorrect information or representation, or maybe you have suppressed some material fact information, or it has been incorporated by some fraudulent action. then the promoters, first directors of the company, and the person making the declaration, they will be liable under section 447. Now, because the company has come into existence post incorporation, we have the promoter, director, and the persons to be held responsible. Okay. So what is now section 447? Sometimes students get confused. So I have a smaller version of it. What is section 447? It's a general section, punishment for fraud. Whenever there is fraud and you want to introduce punishment, this section can be applied. Now, step number 1, calculate 1% of turnover. Let's say, for example, it comes to 8 lakhs. Compare it with 10 lakhs. Find the lower amount, 8 lakhs. Now, if my fraud is less than 8 lakh, if my fraud, because I got the number 8 lakh, okay, lower of the two, 8 lakh. Now, if my fraud is less than 8 lakh, then this row will apply. This is only example. Huh? But if my fraud is more than or equal to 8 lakh, then this will apply. Again, 8 lakh is just an example. One more example. Calculate 1% of turnover. Let's say it comes to 12 lakhs. Compare it with 10 lakh, whichever is like 10 lakh. Now, if my fraud is less than 10 lakh, first row. If my fraud is more than equal to 10 lakh, then second row. Did you understand? Now, if your fraud is less than that amount, you may be subject to fine 50 lakhs or imprisonment up to 5 years or both. If it is more than or equal to that amount, then minimum is the amount involved in fraud. Maximum your fine may go to 3 times the amount involved in fraud, and minimum 6 months imprisonment, which may extend to maximum 10 years. If we feel that it involves public interest, this will remain the same. Only thing is punishment will increase from 6 months to 3 years. Will this be asked in the exam? It may not be asked in the exam, but you need to be aware. Okay. I hope you have highlighted all this. Also write this. Done. Okay. These are only examples. Huh? Now, what is order of NCLT? Where the company has been incorporated as above. As above means by giving false information. It has been incorporated as above. The tribunal may, on an application made to it, now the company has been incorporated fraudulently. We are going to give them punishment, no doubt about it. They are punishable. But the company is incorporated. Tribunal, what should we do? You punish them, but what about the company? Should we allow it to continue? See, we can tell the company to alter the objects so that everything is lawful now. So you regulate the management. These directors and promoters are the persons who, thought of incorporating a company fraudulently. Remove them, change the management. If you're not ready to do that, then the liability of the members may be unlimited. That is also one possibility. Or the tribunal will say, remove the name of the company from the register. This is nothing but striking off. Strike off. Remove the name. It is as if the company no longer exists now. Or they may pass an order for winding up. Now, what is the difference between strike off and winding up? See, winding up is a very lengthy procedure. Plus, it is time consuming and also expensive. Strike off is easier version of winding up. Okay, it is a simpler version of winding up. It is less time consuming, is less expensive, and also winding up is basically when there are more creditors. So it is difficult to apply a shortcut. Strike off is when there are low or no creditors. Then it is easy because there's no creditor. So you can just wind up. So you can just strike off the name and nobody will be affected as such. So there is a difference between these two. Winding up is lengthy and the shortcut version is strike off. But before doing this, we will give the company an opportunity of being heard. We will also consider the obligations, creditors, the liabilities that they have incurred, etc. Again, now we come to some extra reading. Students, please pause the video and write all this. This is extra, not important for exam. Let us discuss the commencement of business. Section 10A can be asked as a theory question. Now, students, you have incorporated a company. Very good. In the memorandum, the subscribers, okay, Mr. A and Mr. B. You need two persons to incorporate a company, the subscribers. They have mentioned that I will take 10,000 equity shares of rupees 10 each. I will bring 1 lakh. And he also says, okay, I will, 10,000 equity shares of rupees 10 each. I will also bring 1 lakh. Now, in the memorandum, they have mentioned that they will bring this money. ROC is like, give us proof that you have actually brought that money. How are you going to do business without money? You will have to bring that money sometime in the company, no? Otherwise, we will assume that you just incorporated a company and now you will use it for unlawful purpose or like a shell company. If you are promising, then bring that money. Show us the proof. Law says that a declaration in Form 20A must be filed by the director within a period of 180 days from the date of incorporation, that each person mentioned in the memorandum as a subscriber has paid that money. Give us bank statement. Give us bank proof that the money has come from A's saving account to the company, B's saving account to the company. We want to know whether they have actually contributed the money. Also, give us a verification of the registered office. See, we had discussed section 12, which requires that the company must have a registered office within 30 days of incorporation and a proof that this is our registered office. That proof must be given in Form INC 22. So this is my registered office and I have brought in that money. That proof needs to be given. What if I default? Then in that case, the company will be subject to penalty of 50,000. Every officer will be penalty of 1,000 rupees for each day of default, maximum 1 lakh. Do you need to memorize this? Yes. This you need to learn. Write and practice. Write it 10 times. You will be able to memorize it. What if declaration is not filed within 180 days? 180 days is very close to 6 months. You have not filed the declaration. It means you have no intention of doing business. Let wind up. Strike off the name. See, how can you claim that no, my company is still doing business without money, without bringing anything? How is that possible? So, if you don't file a declaration and the registrar has reasonable cause to believe that you're doing business, that you're not carrying on any business, he will initiate the action for removal of name of the company from the register. He will take action for striking off the name of the company from the register of company. Done. This is the marking. Okay. Effect of registration, it's very simple. I don't think it will be asked in the exam. Section 9 says that once the company is incorporated, it is considered as a body corporate. Okay, so the company becomes a body corporate from the date mentioned in the certificate. Now, the company comes into existence from the date mentioned in the certificate and not from the date the certificate is mailed and emailed it to you. Now, certificate of incorporation is like a birth certificate. Now, you are born on 7th of March, but your dad got your birth certificate on 10th of March. When is your birthday? I'm obviously the day we were born, not the day on which my father received the birth certificate. Same logic applies here. The company comes into existence from the date which is mentioned in the certificate and not from the date on which the certificate is emailed and sent to the company. The company now acquires perpetual succession, limited liability, MOA and AOA are binding on the company and members. Property now belongs to the company. Liability is not the liability of the shareholders, it is liability of the company. And the management is through directors. Not very important. The company acquires on registration, it acquires a separate existence. Law now regards it as a legal person, separate and distinct from the members. Yeah, it becomes a separate legal, it acquires a separate legal status, it becomes a body corporate. Section 9 says that on incorporation, from the date mentioned in the certificate, the company is now a separate person in the eyes of law. Company becomes a body corporate. That is mentioned in section 9. The company may purchase shares of another company. It's a separate person in the eyes of law. I can become the controlling company, holding company. Now, if H purchases 60% of S, okay, H has purchased 60% of S. Does it mean that now S lost its status? It is still a separate juristic entity. Juristic means legal. So just because a company purchased all the shares of another company, you made it a wholly owned company. It does not mean that the second company has lost its existence. The mere fact that entire capital has been contributed by the central government, all shares are held by the president, does it mean that it is the government itself? No. Government is only a shareholder. It's a government company. Government is merely holding shares. That does not mean that the company has become the government itself. Acha, the government company has become insolvent. Does it mean that the state or central government that has invested, they have also become insolvent? No. Central or the state government is just a member. They are just an investor. This company is neither the agent of the president or central government. It is not even an agent of the president or the central government. Employees are not government employees. So government is only an investor. Doesn't mean that the company has now become an agent of the government. Simple points may be asked in the exam. I don't know. Up till now, question has never been asked. Okay, so we don't know. So students, this was today's session on incorporation of the company. In my next session, I will discuss registration of Section 8 company, and we have simplified notes for you. Yes, simple notes are given. Then we will discuss a few practical insights. Okay, I'll see you in my next lecture. Till then, although this was an easy chapter, please go through it once again and try to learn it. These are things that you need to learn on your own. Okay, declaration, etc. All this was covered in foundation also. So go through this on your own, and I will see you in my next session.